And item number 4, the second reading of the Payroll Tax Amendment No. 2 Act 2024 will be undertaken now, and that is in the name of Senator Ariana Hudson, the spokesperson for Finance. Senator Hudson, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, I'd like to start by moving that the provisions of Standing Order 25 be granted so that I may proceed with the second reading of the Digital Asset Business Amendment Act the Payroll Tax Amendment No. 2 Act 2024. Going back to last week.
Is there any objection to that motion? No objection.
Thank you, Madam President. Then I move that the bill entitled the Payroll Tax Amendment No. 2 Act 2024 be now read a second time.
Is there any objection to the second reading? No objection.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, the bill presented today before this House is the Payroll Tax Amendment No. 2 Act 2024, and the purpose of this bill is to further harmonize and modernize the public service vehicle industry. Madam President, it is very important that we embrace efficiency in government tax collection. In our relentless pursuit of excellence, we must never underestimate the transformative power of efficiencies. Especially in the realm of government tax collection, streamlining processes can yield profound benefits for both administrators and taxpayers alike. When we simplify and modernize our tax systems, we create an environment that actually fosters transparency and fairness. By reducing complexity and eliminating unnecessary obstacles, we make it easier for individuals and businesses to comply with tax regulations, ultimately enhancing voluntary compliance. The introduction of clear, tiered structures and fixed tax rates is a shining example of how thoughtful reforms can lead to significant improvements. These measures not only reduce the administrative burden on taxpayers, but also allow our government to allocate resources more effectively, ensuring that public services are well-funded and robust. Madam President, this is what this bill does. The bill introduces a new payroll tax system specifically for minibus owners. This revised system will feature a fixed payroll tax structure organized into 3 tiers based on the seating capacity of the minibus itself. Under this new framework, owners will no longer be required to engage in complex calculations or reconciliations to determine their payroll tax liability. Also, to streamline processes for the owners, the payment of the tax can be made simultaneously during the minibus licensing period. The new system is structured as follows. Tier 1, minibuses with a seating capacity of up to 15 passengers will incur an annual payroll tax of $750. Tier 2, minibuses with a seating capacity between 16 and 24 passengers will incur an annual payroll tax of $1,000. And finally, in Tier 3, minibuses with a seating capacity of more than 24 passengers will incur an annual payroll tax of $1,500. All for a total of an approximate $221,500 to be collected in revenue as compared to an approximate $35,000, Madam President. The introduction of this simplified payroll tax system represents a step forward in improving the efficiency and harmonization of the tax process within the public service vehicle sector. By establishing a clear tiered structure based on seating capacity, the system removes the need for calculations, thereby facilitating easier compliance with tax regulations for minibus owners. This change not only brings tangible benefits to the operators by simplifying their tax obligations, but also enhances the overall transparency within the industry. The tiered approach ensures that the tax requirement is equitably distributed in line with the size of the vehicle, contributing to a more streamlined and efficient public service vehicle sector. This move will undoubtedly create greater compliance, provide clarity for owners, whilst we continue to facilitate a more orderly and transparent operating environment across the industry. Madam President, since we will be charging minibuses payroll tax based on seats, we thought it was fair to review what taxi drivers paid, as they also have seat capacity. Madam President, under the previous One Bermuda Alliance administration, taxi owners faced an average annual payroll tax of $3,000. In 2019, the Progressive Labor Party took decisive action, reducing this tax burden to $1,000 per year. Now we are taking it a step further by reducing the payroll tax for taxi drivers from $1,000 to $600, representing an additional $400 reduction. This, Madam President, is an 80% reduction in payroll tax that taxi drivers will have to pay. Madam President, this reduction is designed to ease the financial burden on taxi operators and to help create a more balanced and equitable structure within the industry. This comprehensive approach not only improves the operational efficiency of the sector, but also generates a more inclusive and supportive environment for all operators. Ultimately, it contributes to the overall enhancement of the public service vehicle industry. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Senator Ariana Hudson. Would any senator care to speak on this bill? Senator Dwayne Robinson, OBA, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. And the opposition does support any sort of tax relief or tax reform that not only lowers taxes for an entrepreneur such as a taxi operator, but also creates a tax regime for the minibuses. So my question is just along the lines of consultation. There has been a public strain of a relationship between the BTOA and the government. And I just wanted to, ask if they were consulted with this particular legislation, because it is a step in the right direction, and I'm sure taxi drivers will welcome a relief to their payroll tax. However, there have been mentioned other ways that this particular tax could be amended to service the industry a bit more. And I won't proceed anything or speak on behalf of an entire industry, but I do believe that it would be wise for government to consult and speak with the BTOA as to how some of their recommendations that they've made public can be implemented to make this system and transport as a whole, better. So with this bill obviously not being under transport, I won't expect the junior minister to weigh it in on it, but I think that they intertwine in a way. So I also would like to ask, what is this one of the steps taken to repair that relationship with the BTOA? Because my concern is that we see a lot of things happening in the tourism, and this is a good thing for the island, and our tourism product is, experiencing a boost when it comes to the potential openings and the investments that we see. So it's very crucial for us to have a transport system for tourists that really work. So it's a question of parity here as well, because you have up to 15 seats for a minibus, and that's only 150 more than a taxi, right? So it's just little things to make sure that you're providing equal opportunity for all the entrepreneurs involved and not, skewing it in any way. So I just would like to hear if any consultation was done on this particular bill, and if anything is coming preceding it that will include some recommendations from the BTOA. And I would like to just also hear a little bit from the junior minister on some of the data that was consulted or used to determine that this was the best method to go as far as the tiers and the particular amounts that are taxed when in comparison to taxi drivers, and also whether or not there is adequate and sufficient TCD data available, and whether that system is being properly managed, which would be able to inform government on the comings and goings of the transport system, taxi drivers and minibuses, and whether or not that was used to inform this particular decision. And the reason why I'm asking these particular questions is because there is a sentiment that has been stated publicly by some, and also by the BTOA and others in the industry, that this is, election season, and we have to be honest that it could potentially be perceived as a way to somewhat win back that particular industry without doing the actual groundwork to really address and implement some of their concerns that they have to effectively enhance their industry and modernize it for the coming time. So I just want to be sure and give the junior minister the opportunity to dissuade that particular idea by, letting us know about the going forward of the collaboration between the BTOA and the industry as a whole. So with that, I look forward to hearing the answers, and we support this bill. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Senator Robinson. Would any other senator? Sorry, Senator John White, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. I fully support this bill. I think it's fair and appropriate. So, in full support for it. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you. Senator Karen Bell, Vice President, you have the floor.
Madam President, I do have some questions on this bill. My starting position really is that this is a payroll tax amendment bill. And so it starts with what is a payroll tax. And in Bermuda, as we know, payroll tax is levied on all employers, self-employed individuals, and deemed employees based on remuneration. And so the reason I'm struggling with this a little bit is that we are treating a certain portion of our self-employed community and some of our employee community completely differently if they are in the public driving taxi driver industry. And I struggle with that because a tax system should be equitable and fair based on, not based on what you do, but based on the revenue that is derived from that. And we're creating this two-tiered system. So I listened carefully to my colleague, Senator Hudson, when she was referring to the reasons behind this. And it appeared that the driver was efficiency in tax collections. And if I look back in time to 2018, so this original difference created for taxi drivers occurred on it was effective 1st of April, 2018. The $1,000 prepayment, if you like, of payroll tax, which is only for taxi operators. It's not for taxi drivers. And at the time, it was indicated that the reason for that was because such a large portion of the taxi owner, operator, driver community was not actually contributing to the payroll tax system. There were only 411, I think was the actual statistic that was recounted, if I'm permitted to say, in another place by the then Premier, or who is the now Premier, who were paying those payroll taxes. And so this was, at the time, intended to make sure and fix that through a simplified process so that the taxi owners and operators would prepay $1,000 payroll tax annually as part of that licensing regime. Now, taking a step back for a moment, the rest of Bermuda pays payroll tax quarterly. Every other employer in Bermuda, other than I think fishermen and farmers, who are exempted for other public policy reasons, so I won't touch on them for a moment, are required to pay that quarterly payroll tax on what payroll is actually paid. I'm sure there's many other employers, self-employed employers in particular in Bermuda, who would appreciate very much the ability to prepay an amount, who might be similarly fixed in a similar type of an income bracket, if I can put it that way, as self-employed. And I can imagine people like self-employed general contractors who provide maintenance, who have to pay for truck licenses for their trucks, but they're not making huge sums of money, who would very much appreciate to administratively streamline their own businesses and prepay $600 and prepay all their payroll taxes. Similarly, you can imagine people who work as housekeepers who are self-employed. And there's hosts of other types of self-employed people in Bermuda who you can imagine would benefit enormously from having this type of a provision made for them so that they can prepay a capped sum. So at the moment, a taxi operator will be paying a capped payroll tax of $600 if this passes, reduced from $1,000, which means if any taxi operator makes more than $52,000 using the payroll tax calculator on the government's website, they are ahead. They're ahead of every other person in Bermuda who earns a similar amount. And I suppose my question is why? Why is that considered appropriate for one industry and not all? And is there any consideration being given to give optionality to other employers in Bermuda who are in a similar scenario, who can prepay and cap their payroll tax liability in this manner? And secondarily, why is it considered appropriate only for taxi drivers and now minibus drivers? Thank you.
Thank you, Vice President Kieran Bell. Would any other senator care to speak on this bill? Senator Tucker, OBA leader in the Senate, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. I actually only have a point of clarification I'm just looking for. I just want to be clear that that the minibus operators will have to pay payroll tax on every vehicle that they own. So if an operator owns 5 minibuses, they have to pay payroll tax on each of those minibuses. Just as a point of clarification. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Senator Tucker.
Madam President, I just want to start by simply responding to Senator Tucker's question and saying yes, that it would be per vehicle. I also want to take a step back to Senator Robertson's question about consultation to say that, of course, we have been in constant contact with the Bermuda Taxi Owners and Operators Association. It's a relationship that obviously continues to evolve. We understand the touch points that have been contentious in some areas, but I think that as we've seen, we've been able to find some resolve for taxi drivers, taxi operators themselves in terms of increases and some, I guess, reform to what was currently existing. I can also say that obviously before we bring a piece of legislation to this space, this bill has gone through analysis. This bill has gone through drafting and revisions. And so before we get here, of course, there's a lot of consultation that takes place. So, of course, it's not appropriate to say that this is a matter of an election promise. It's something that we are constantly thinking about as a government. We've reduced payroll taxes for workers across the board. We are continuing to have conversations about how we continue to expand that reduction in payroll tax for those that warrant it. I would also, I guess, comment that when we think about the difference in payroll taxes and the variations in different industries, I think it's worth highlighting the fact that there are a combination of, I guess, like economic, social, and policy factors that obviously have to be considered as we consider the unique needs and circumstances of each industry. And so I can't speak on behalf of any minister in terms of the final policy decisions that are made. But I can say that as a Progressive Labour Party government, payroll taxes and relieving the burdens on workers is something we're always looking to do. Just making sure I covered the points. I appreciated Senator White, who believed that the amendments were fair and appropriate, and so I thank him for his support. And I think that addresses the comments and questions that were made by my colleagues. And so, Madam President, I'd like to move that the bill entitled the Payroll Tax Amendment No. 2 Act 2024 be now read a second time.
Is there any objection to the second reading? No objection.
Thank you, Madam President. I move that Rule 26 be suspended in respect of this bill.
Is there any objection to that amendment? No objection.
Thank you, Madam President. Then I move that the bill entitled the Payroll Tax Amendment No. 2 Act 2024 be now read a third time.
Is there any objection to the third reading? No objection.
Thank you, Madam President. Then I move that this bill do now pass.
It has been moved that this bill do now pass. Is there an objection to the movement of the bill? No objection. The bill is passed. Thank you, Senator Ariana Hudson, and thank you, Senators, for your support of this bill.